Do you have a true scary story that you'd like to share with the channel? Go to astheravendreams.com/submit or check the links down below. And of course, thank you. The recent glitches that I have had really have me thinking about all the bizarre things that happened to me in the past. One of the first ones that stuck with me was the house with the big willow tree in its front yard. It was Halloween back in the late 80s. I was doing the usual trick-or-treating thing with my friend. We got to the house at the end of my street, a house I didn't know was even there because of this huge willow tree blocking it. So, we walked to a side door and knocked. A bald guy answered, and when I say bald, I mean totally shaved, cleaned, and shiny. He was wearing a turtleneck shirt, or what looked like one. I know it was Halloween, so maybe it was a really enthusiastic guy getting into the holidays, but the house wasn't decorated. Maybe just a bald guy, but the house was unusually bright inside. Like floodlights bright. Although it was ambient, as in coming from everywhere but nowhere specifically, the inside of the house from what we saw was spotless. I mean, there was nothing out of place. Everything looked fake. The guy seemed not to understand us, nor know what we wanted. He even looked confused as he looked past us, confused by the gloomy weather or something. He seemed almost shocked. He said something to a woman. Again, I didn't understand what he said nor what the woman said, and now when I think back, it sounded Swedish or French. I don't know. He nodded, and a bunch of times smiling, then closed the door. We didn't get any candy. Okay, now the really weird part. At the time, we thought it was just a weird foreign guy who didn't understand the culture or language, and had a bizarre sense of style. A few months later, I was at a friend's house, the friend who was friends with the kid that lived next door to the Willow house, and I told him the story. He then accused me of lying because no one has lived there in almost a year. An elderly woman lived there alone, and was currently in the hospital very ill. She had no living siblings or family members, so this kid's father was the caretaker of the house. He said that him and his father regularly go over, they check it over, etc. I insisted. He said, hold on. He went inside and got keys. He walked around past the willow tree and there wasn't even a side door. Only one in the front and one in the back. I was so freaked out. We went to the back door because the front was overgrown with years of neglect reclaiming it. We went to the back and it wasn't at all the same house. It was shabby, neglected clearly. It was the home of an elderly woman who had lost the ability to maintain it. He said, "See, you're lying." I was at a loss for words. And then I remembered my friend who was with me. A few days later, we all happened to be together. I said, "Hey, tell him about the Willow house, that one Halloween." And he said, "Oh, the one with the bald guy?" I said, "Yeah, see? He only remembered a bald guy, though. Not much else. Other than he didn't give us candy." The kid still didn't believe it. I can't say I blame him. Evidence is what it is. Back then, there was no term for stuff like that. Either aliens, ghosts, Loch Ness monsters, Bigfoot, no glitches. Sure enough, he did say the one reason he and his father needed to check the house often was because the water faucets and lights kept turning on by themselves. Now, ghosts can't manifest a door and a whole inside of a house. Besides, that was a solid person and the door was real, because we knocked on it. The only reason I grouped this into the glitch area, because how it was slowly deleted from my friend's memory. A few months later, not one of them remembered it, nor the conversation around it. Now, I am curious if they remember it now because I found sometime after years it does come back, but I don't know. Maybe some people don't just get the updates and then crash because they're too out of sync with reality that they now reside in. I don't know. My entire life, I've been plagued with things like this. Most of the events have witnesses, evidence, etc. Some don't. So, are people like me a self-aware glitch themselves? Is the world broken, or are we? Well, that's it for this one. I really don't know if I should share more because some are just outrageous and I fear losing credibility. I don't want recognition or attention. But I can't lie, it does feel good to finally tell others about these events. Tonight, I believe my brother and I somehow got into a time loop or deja vu. Something's odd and nothing feels right anymore. My brother, 13, and myself, 25, were in the car waiting for our family to be done at Walmart. It was about 9:40-ish. We think nothing of waiting and just talk passing the time as my brother tells me about school from his 6th grade adventures. Mainly about weird kids in class. Keep in mind we're in the back seat of a truck and are in the parking lot of Walmart. Looking to the right, as I'm seated on that side, I see a man wearing a dirty white shirt running with his daughter as they wail and holler and laugh. Seeing this, my brother and I both laugh because it was kind of funny to watch. On the left of the truck on my brother's side is a blue car. A man is packing that car but taking forever, so we go back to talking. About 2 minutes later, a group of 3 girls walk by the truck laughing and saying random banter that I can't quite remember, something along the lines of someone being so funny. They get in the car diagonal to the truck and laugh before pulling out and leaving. My brother notices the blue car guy finally leaving as well moments later. He commented by saying, "Finally." Now, here's the weird part. After we talk a little bit more and laugh with each other, suddenly, we hear a familiar wail. I turned to the right and it was the same dirty white shirt guy running the same path with the same daughter laughing. I said, "Deja vu," out loud, and felt a little weird. It was that feeling of, what in the world? My brother laughed a bit thinking I was memeing until he looked and noticed the blue car guy packing again. We paid no mind, thinking maybe he forgot something and go about talking, until we hear the laugh of the 3 girls. They load up and pass our window again, getting in the car diagonal of us. Same outfits, same being so funny. By now, my brother and I are looking at each other. I mentioned it's weird, and why is that guy running the same path twice? My brother says maybe he forgot something in the store. We shake it off, and I look at my dying phone at 2% charge, and we note the time being 9:50. My phone dies trying to load up YouTube, and we laugh and talk. My brother takes his Switch after some time, and notes the time is still 9:50. We were talking for at least a good 5 minutes. We think it's weird, getting a little nervous, but we distract each other with jokes. After what feels like 2 to 3 minutes later, the same white shirt guy and daughter run out of the store wailing and laughing. We see it now, and we're worried. Turn to the left, and that same blue car is still packing. My brother comments, "Maybe we're in a time loop like you said," and then the girls come out and go to their car again. This time, we do something different. We watch the white shirt guy load up his daughter in his van, and talk to the driver for a bit before getting in and pulling out. I was curious to see if they actually left this time. The girls leave next, and then finally the blue car. My brother states, if it happens again, we're going in the store. We feel like it's been ages waiting until we see our family leave the store and come to the car. They don't believe us, only our father who likes to read about theories, and then we make note of the time. 9:55 p.m. How did all of that happen in what felt like at least 20 minutes happen in only 5? How did we see the same people 3 times doing the same thing 3 times? We aren't tired. We both witnessed the same events and are both in agreement. Our family says they felt strange in the store, but they leave it at that. So what happened to us? It's been on my mind that we were in some sort of time loop. Any answers help, and thank you for reading. I am aware of the you don't see a red car until you have one phenomenon, but that seems to occur when you are thinking about it. I don't actively think about cars disappearing and reappearing, but it has happened 3 times, so I wonder what gives. And no doubts, y'all have no idea where these places are, so I'm not being intentionally vague, just trying to give a good idea of circumstances. The first time has been at least 6 months ago. I was traveling up the highway to a client's house. A very bright orange SUV was behind me. Not close or tailgating, just in the rear. We approached the stop sign. It's a dead end to go left or right on the next highway, and we were both headed left up an inclined, curvy, forested road to the next town. I saw a large truck coming that I didn't want to lag behind. My car is old. I need a running start. So I got on out and out of the way. I kept an eye on my rearview mirror to be sure that I hadn't cut him off, and zipped on. As the road planed back out, I can see at least half a mile behind me now. There's no vehicle of any type. About a mile further is my right turn onto the next highway. I just happened to look up in the rear view when I made my turn, and that bright-ass orange SUV is right behind me, as if it had dropped out of the sky. And I had been glancing back because I wondered why no cars had come around the big truck. There was no one back there. The second instance was last week. I was behind a porta-potty truck and I went around it. Of course I was faster. My car is small and I'm not hauling anything. Several miles and 4 turns later to a 4-way stop, and there it is again. Coming from the right at the stop sign, and it gets in front of me again. Like it dropped from the sky. And I know it was the same one because there was a name sticker on the window, and I felt the crapper wasn't properly secured, which is why I hauled ass around it as quickly as possible the first and second time. Anyway, I passed around it again, and when I looked in the rear view, a few seconds later, the truck was gone. There was nowhere to hang a quick turn or a driveway to be in, it was just gone. My last experience was yesterday. We were coming up the highway, and a small gray crossover was coming into the median to turn into traffic in our direction. They came up beside a big truck on the wrong side, so I had a small concern that they didn't see us and were poised to pull on out. I was watching intently at that spot to see the car stopped. I could see under the truck body, and not even the tires were visible. Like, it was never even there. I kept looking back, and nothing. So, are cars glitching on the regular, and am I just noticing, or am I losing it? About a year ago, during the summer of the pandemic, I was working at Pizza Hut and I'd made a good friend. We would hang out after the closing shift and drive around. I was living in the middle of nowhere in Indiana, so there's not really anything to do but drive around. Randonauting was pretty popular at the time, an app that gives you a random energy points with coordinates, and we decided to try the app out. We were out near some cornfields and we had missed our destination. I was the navigator and was looking for a spot to make a U-turn. I was looking ahead on the map and I saw a U-shaped road with a 3-exit roundabout, the second exit leading away from the main road. I tell my friend to turn into the road, we come up to the roundabout, and I tell them to take the first exit. We exit the roundabout, and this is where things get weird. We're driving back into the same roundabout. I freeze, and my friend is asking me which exit to take. My gut tells me to take the second exit this time, so I tell them to take the second exit. This leads us to the main road. I'm incredibly confused and looking at the map, which still only has one roundabout on it. I said something about it being weird that there were 2 roundabouts when the map only shows one. My friend has no recollection of the first roundabout. They still have no recollection of it to this day, but I remember it so vividly. The day after, I tried to find the road that we took to make a U-turn by looking at the map, and I'm completely unable to find the road. It just doesn't exist anymore. There's not even a roundabout in the area that we were driving in. Ever since then, things have been slightly off. The house across the street from my house has turned 90 degrees from how I remember it. The main road to the shopping center is shorter. I know this because I time my drives. It used to be 13 minutes, and now it only takes 8 minutes. I notice a lot of other little things like that. I think I got transported to another timeline or universe. A little background. My paternal grandparents bought a piece of property long ago that the family uses for camping. It's far from power and cell signals, but just off the highway. As my family lives about 100 miles from the property, we leave our camp trailers on site and have multiple trail cams set up for security and wildlife watching. My dad has suffered a couple of seizures and can no longer get around easily, so they had not been up since Memorial Weekend, with me checking on their trailer when I was up. Okay, I think that's enough, so on with the story. Since they hadn't been camping this year, my parents' refrigerator had been shut down with nothing but water and pop in it. Upon arriving to the camp, however, they unlocked their trailer and found a raw packaged roast bleeding on the floor next to their trash can. I arrived shortly after and began downloading video from the cameras to see what happened. All cameras had consecutive numbering intact. There were no deleted videos or photos, and no living people in any of them except me leaving the previous weekend and returning this weekend, as well as my parents arriving. There's no way to get to the trailer without crossing multiple cameras. Only myself, my parents, and my uncle, who hadn't made it up yet with keys, and only deer and raccoons in the pictures. The meat had not begun to noticeably rot, and there was no odor and nobody to the trailer. One camera directly faces their trailer. The temperatures all week had been 90 degrees plus. In addition, my mother doesn't bring roasts for cooking up there, and I had not used their trailer at all. the meat was definitely not there the previous weekend when I checked it for mice, so I'm open to ideas as to where this meat came from. My only thought is my mother, in another dimension, tried to throw it away, and it never hit the bottom. So, I'm writing this about 30 minutes after it happened, because I'm still confused and wanted to share it. A bit of backstory first. My cousin has a gym in his house, so I went there to exercise with him. We finished our workout and then sat down on chairs outside for a bit and just talked. I was holding my phone in one hand and my car keys in the other. About 10 minutes into our conversation, I looked down and noticed my finger started spontaneously bleeding. I thought, that's weird, because I know for certain I didn't scratch myself on anything and it wasn't there at the start of our conversation. However, at the same time as this, my cousin pointed out that his legs started bleeding spontaneously too. I told him that I had also started bleeding, and we felt a little uneasy, but just shrugged it off. After about 10 more minutes, I decided to leave because there was a storm coming. So, we both got up and started walking back to the door. As we were walking, I noticed something on the ground a few meters ahead of us. We got closer. I recognized it as my car key that I was just holding mere seconds ago. We looked in disbelief as I picked up my car key off the floor and attached it back to my lanyard. There was no way it fell off as I was walking because I vividly remember gripping my keys in my hand the whole time. My cousin then jokingly said, "Bro, we live in a simulation," which I laughed at, but I'm still creeped out by this situation. We both bled at the exact same time, and then my keys magically teleported a few meters away from me. Does anyone know what could have happened? Please do let me know what you guys think. This isn't a scary or exceptionally exciting experience, but it's definitely one that I will never forget. About a month ago, I was parking in a Walmart parking lot. It was busy, and I had followed a car down a lane while searching for a spot. There happened to be two spots right next to each other towards the back end of the parking lot. The car that I had been following pulled into one of the spots, and I, directly behind them, pulled into the one right beside it. However, as soon as I parked and looked over at this car, there was no one in the driver's seat or the rest of the car, and the seat was not reclined. My sister was in the passenger side of my vehicle, and we both stared over for a few seconds, perplexed that the car was empty after we had pulled up next to it, no more than a couple of seconds after it parked. We even lifted out of our seats a little to try to see if maybe the driver was bent over or something. Also, we were left of the vehicle, so we would have seen anyone get out as we were pulling in, but nothing. We shrug it off and we start heading towards the store, when after a few seconds of walking, no more than 5 to 10 feet, we realize we forgot our masks. When we turned back to get our masks out of the car, we see a man in the driver's side of the car that we followed. We were both quite weirded out. This was about 3 to 4 years ago, when I was in my second year of high school. I've left school now, but forgot about this incident until now. We were in a religious studies classroom, just learning about stuff while the teacher is talking. I'm paying attention to what the teacher is saying until a huge flash of white light happened outside. I looked outside and then looked back around the classroom. Nobody else seemed to have noticed it. My childhood best friend was a table over, and she was looking at me confused. I asked her if she had seen it, and she said yes. She was the only other person that witnessed it. It didn't even feel like a flash of light. It felt like everything outside the classroom itself just disappeared into a white void for about 1.5 seconds. It didn't corrupt my vision at all, so this is where I find it hard to believe it was a flash of light. Because I genuinely looked out the window and it was just like a white void. I brought this up to her a couple of months back, and she still remembers it, and she thinks the same thing as me. She also doubts it was just a flash of random light, as it looked like a void. It's so difficult to try to explain this to anyone, because you wouldn't understand until you actually saw what we saw. I still think it's some kind of glitch, like the world just didn't load for a second. So that was this week's Glitch in the Matrix collection. Hopefully, you all enjoyed it. I know I did. Definitely some creepy stories. The submitted one is probably one of my favorites with the side door and the bald guy. That one's actually really weird. Definitely a strange event that I can't think of any explanation for. Some would say spirits or hauntings or ghosts, but like they said, manifesting an entire door and inside of a house just seems kind of off. Almost like they went to a house that wasn't actually there. Like they jumped into an existence where the house was different. I don't know. Definitely weird. Anyways, huge thank you to everyone who submits their stories to me, and a huge thank you to everyone on Reddit who lets me use their stories. Thank you so very much. Now, a huge thank you to all of you for listening to this point. If you're listening to this point, you probably want the word of the week. Last week's word of the week was courage, or courageous. Either one. And on the screen right now are the entries that we got for said word of the week. Genuinely appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who commented. Now this week, I wanted to levy a bit of a challenge with the word. So this week the word is haircut. H-A-I-R-C-U-T, haircut, not haircut. Anyways, haircut. Haircut means the act or instance of cutting the hair or a style in which the hair is cut. Use that word however you see fit for your word of the week this week. I know it won't be easy, because haircut's kind of an obscure word, but you got this. You can do it. So, anyways, huge thank you, friends. I hope you all have a beautiful day. I hope I will see you on the next video, but until then, sleep well.